Hello, welcome to the table. My name's Jonathan Hicks.
I'm Steve Rain.
And I'm Mark Windle.
And we are looking at our top 10 games from the UK Games Expo 2019. We went, it was a week or so ago now, wasn't
it?
Yeah. For sort of a long weekend and played loads of games. We did lots of recording, filmed loads of videos, and had a great time, actually. I mean, I certainly enjoyed myself enormously. How did you guys find it?
It was good. It's probably the best expo I've been to in terms of, although it had the most people, it felt like it had the most space.
Yeah,
it
expanded really well.
It was less crowded. They make use of the space. They went into a third hall. A lot of the tournament play and bringing by was out of the way, and then the open gaming, there was loads of space, and it just felt like there was just a bit more room to manoeuvre.
Yeah, I think I'd actually rate it as my favourite con I've been to, and that includes visiting a few Essens. It was just, we managed to get a really good mix of demoing, playing games, buying and looking around. The balance of all three of those was really good. Often we can get lost either walking around and demoing too much, but we were lucky enough to do the media event on the Thursday, which just took so much weight off our schedule.
I was a very long Thursday for me. I went for the retail thing, learned how to play everything, and then when we came to the media thing, I could rattle loads of reviews off because I already knew how to play. So we got a lot done on Thursday, which meant that over the rest of the weekend we had less to do, I think.
Time pressure wasn't there. Yeah. We just kind of did our own thing when we wanted to.
Really good.
It was great. Anyway, so we've sort of compiled a collective top 10 in no particular order. These are the top 10 games that we liked the most from the UK Games Expo. Now, just be aware that some of these games that we played were prototypes and haven't come out yet, but we love them so much we sort of wanted to share them with you. So first game then, so I've got my secret list here, is Europe Divided, which is like a sequel to Twilight Struggle of sorts, more of a spiritual successor. It's set after the Cold War, so kind of 92 up to present day, but they've streamlined it a bit. It's a bit nicer. You don't have so many tokens and chits all over the board. You just use dice to represent how much influence you've got in the different places. But it plays really smoothly. It has all those kind of same interesting decisions in terms of, I could play this event, but that might help him potentially, so maybe I want to kind of bury this event somewhere else, or you're rushing for certain things to score them at the right times. It kind of captures everything you really want from Twilight Struggle, but it's quicker. It's actually going on Kickstarter. Probably as you watch this, it's already out on Kickstarter, so if you're interested in a successor to Twilight Struggle, you can probably back it if you're quick. But I had a great time playing this, really, really liked it.
It sounds like something I'd really like to have a go at then. Yeah, have you backed it yet?
No, as we're recording this, I think it comes out today on Kickstarter.
Okay, I think one of us will back that.
Yeah, it'll be me.
I might do too. Anyway, so my first one is a third in a series. It is the Century series, and it's Century and New World. And we were lucky enough to play this with Tom Vassell, which is quite an interesting experience playing with him. He taught us the game. It was very brief. It was very easy to play, and. Jonathan might disagree with us here, but Mark and I think it's our favourite version of the Century as a standalone game. Now, I will warn you, we haven't played it in combination with the others, and obviously, once you've got all three Century games, it opens up 7 possibilities of games to play. But it felt for me like it had the best balanced engine. Effectively, in the first one, it felt like you pick up cards, and then you use the cards you've got to churn them into points. Yep. And you didn't get any faster at churning into points, you just had more options on your turn. Whereas this one, it felt like when you bought a card, it gave you not only points, it gave you an ability, which allowed you to do certain other things. And throughout the game, you kind of get a bit faster. You get a few more workers out, and it's a worker placement. So it is churning cubes into contracts, effectively, like all the Century games are. But the worker placement aspect is really nice. When you put workers down, you take an action. Mark can come along and take the same action I've got, but he has to place one more worker, and I get mine back. So you kind of plan where someone else is going to go, you get them back, and then you don't have to rest as quickly.
I found it the powers more varied in a nice way. There's enough of a range that I was making decisions on. I really like that power. It'd be really handy for me to get. And I also like the fact that you can have up to 3 scoring tiles at the end of the game. And while they're always available, so when you complete a contract, you could take one. A lot of time you're thinking, I don't think I want to take one now. I'm going to hold off and see if something's better available for me. But obviously, that's a risk. Yeah. And then you inevitably get the other thing is, I'm completing a contract, so it's like, well, I'm going to complete that contract and get that power. But then somebody takes one else and they slide down. It's like, it's moved to the wrong bit of the board for me. I can't complete that to get that anymore.
Someone's got too many workers I can't go there.
And then it's like, oh no, so I can't get it. Yeah, I think because it's a worker placement, I preferred it. I just enjoyed the actions I was taking more than just playing some cards. It is a little bit heavier, But for me, I was happy with that little bit of extra weight.
If you want a light worker placement game, it does the job well. But I guess my point was, any kind of worker placement game is a step up from the original Century. It does feel like quite a lot more going on from the original Century. But it's good. It's well done.
Okay, my first one is a game called BRAWL for Adventure, which is a Yahtzee-style cooperative game of fantasy adventure where there's a big bad in a deck of cards and monsters that's eventually going to come out. But you're essentially, was it rings or something? It was something we were trying to get hold of 7 or 8 items. I don't exactly remember what they were.
They're like jewels?
Yeah, but we were trying to essentially, the board is split into quarters and they have 4 different ways of spending your dice in a Yahtzee method. So, for example, one of them, you had a section of wands. So essentially, once I got 3 wands, I could then move one across, and that couldn't be lost because once a monster appeared there, they may get rid of the dice from that area. There's ones where we need 5s and 6s, and you're kind of building round to it. And there's one where we were breaking down also. We need like 4 4s, 4 5s, and 4 6s. But until we actually got all that combination, you didn't break like a light barrier or whatever. So, and then the monsters, I say that randomly spawn could remove dice from those quarters. And also it's quite nice, if the monster was a higher level, so high command, he would activate all the monsters below them.
Yeah.
So you had an interesting decision, am I going to use my dice to try and get rid of, to try and kill this monster off, or actually use it to try and progress? And then also your dice went into this middle oblivion area that you had to eventually spend dice to pull them back out. So there was a lot of cooperative. We played it with, I can't remember what his name was, but we were playing it as 3-player. We picked it up pretty quickly. Yeah. But there was a lot of discussion between us of what we should do in any situation, which I think is good in a good cooperative game.
For a family weight cooperative game, it does its job very well. It has that nice dice manipulation. As Mark's saying, you've got these 4 different quarters, and I think they're double-sided, so you get quite a lot of variety in what you're aiming for. But essentially, you're just rolling your dice and trying to match different combinations in different areas. The interesting decisions in this is, having rolled the dice, it's like, am I better using my 5 and 6 here, or I could use all 3 of my dice in this location, or but maybe we need to spend some of our dice to kill this monster. So there's plenty to do, but essentially it's just dice manipulation. It's simple enough that any kids could play the game, pick it up fairly easily, but with enough interesting decisions, it's a great package, really. And it's me, and we're doing villagers next. This, I think, of all the games that we brought back, because obviously brought back quite a few games from the Expo, of all the games that I could play, this is the game I want to play the most in terms of just playing it again and again and again. It's essentially an engine builder, and when this came on Kickstarter last year, it didn't really appeal to me very much at all. It just seems very bland. You just kind of get your villagers out. But having played it, because we were taught the game by the designer,
yes,
which was great, and it's so engaging. It's hard to explain until you've played it, but essentially you're acquiring villagers from a central market, if you like, and then you're playing the villagers, but there's this big tech tree, effectively. So if you get the miner, then he produces ore that can be used by the blacksmith. So the blacksmith has to go on top of the miner. But if someone else has got a blacksmith, you can use their blacksmith to play... Sorry, you can use their miner, I think, to play your blacksmith, but you have to pay them money, and that's victory points. It's the person with the most money at the end of the game wins, so you really don't want to be paying people money. But you can stack up great big combinations of cards that all rely on the previous ones. Iconography is great. Although there's a lot of interconnected, this will connect with this, or you can build this on this, it's really clear from the cards. It has like a tree of what follows.
The fact it told you this will be able to help you build these as well. It's not just what it required, but it's what it will be able to push down the path. So also if this is the last card in that path, this is the one you're going to finish up with.
A little bit like the Seven Wonders sort of prerequisites, except it's better, it's clearer, it's really, really obvious. And for a game with a lot of moving parts in terms of lots of different kinds of villagers, it's, I think, really, really difficult to make that clear, and they've done such a good job with it. So it's just a great package.
Well, not quite as crazy. I wonder if for me it might end up being a Glory to Rome killer, because it had that millions of different ways of doing different things, and me trying to generate my own engine. I don't think the jet engine is wacky, but I think there's a lot of variation that we can play the game completely different with no overlap in villagers whatsoever, and I think we could both score equally well. We've just got to optimise the way we're doing things.
Yeah, it's really nice. You want to try this one.
So my next game, or the next game, is a bit of a wacky, silly one. Now, we played Ugtect previously, and this is kind of a successor to Ugtect in the same way that you're trying to construct something collectively. And it's called Team 3. but it needs exactly 3 people, so you can either play with 3 people or 2 teams of 3. We have 2 sets in the cafe, so we're going to aim to try and play a 6-player game at some point. And basically, it's based on the hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil monkeys. So someone can't see, they are the architect. Apologies, no, they're the person who's building the building. And to tell them how to build it, there is the person who's got the plans for the building. That might be Jonathan, but he can't speak. So he has to mime what to do to Mark. Mark then has to tell me what to do to build the buildings, and I'm building it with these like Tetris style pentominoes, tetrominoes, that sort of piece in a 3D shape. And it's hilarious. It's just a bit of silly fun. If you like Untitled, and it's a bit better than Untitled in that there isn't someone. We've played Untitled before, and there's often been someone who just doesn't enjoy it, struggles, finds the made-up language hard, struggling to communicate. It's much easier to do it this way. You can kind of say, which means rotate it, and you go, and then the person describing goes, the right, no, the other right, no, that way around, and then, when you get it right, you're doing that, and so you're going all these different things, and it's a bit of hilarity, and it's timed. If you don't do it in 3 minutes, well, you're done. But there are 3 levels of difficulty. Yeah. We've only really done the basic ones.
In fact, you can watch us play our first game on the channel.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those things that I think until you see it happening, it's like, oh, okay, does that really work? But it was great. I mean, we all had a blast playing it, didn't we?
Yes, I'm looking forward to trying the more difficult levels because I think the advantage of having 2 sets is that you can ignore the time limit and just race.
The sets are different.
It's because you don't use the actual pieces in the sets are different.
Some of the cards are the same.
Yeah,
but there are a big chunk of cards that are different.
Yeah. So unless you both have big code names, you both sit down with the same thing. You could potentially do it, but otherwise. Yeah,
but because the complexity of some of those shapes, because when you have to understand that one bit will be hidden behind another piece, so you've got to work out. Well, actually, that must be this way around for that bit to be showing it from one side, and that's.
You've got an L shape. Occasionally, you have to put the L shape, 45-degree angle, and you're like, how do you do it? Twist it? No. Twist it again? No.
It's one of those where you get better with practice. Yeah. So there's an incentive to, let's play this some more so that we can go to the harder level cards because they really are quite a step up in difficulty.
You can be really detailed. You can say, take this piece and put it on top of that piece, left of the... And then the person looking at you is just going...
So next one is going to me and Jonathan played called Endeavour Age of Sail, which we had it was a really good teaching session actually. The guy knew what he was doing from the off. He taught it us a step at a time, just so well. So essentially Endeavour Age of Sail is about shipping goods around the world, I guess would be the best way to put it. It's set in that era of history. But it's super simple. So every round you take a building and then you're adjusting how good you are at getting better buildings, getting more staff to work for you, having money to pay off staff. So once they've done jobs, you get more workers back to you. And then you're just either going out into new areas of the world and start to gain presence there. Because if you've got presence, it's like, the people go, they know him. And then once you've got enough presence, you're going to start putting actually start having physical control of areas like villages and stuff. So initially you could only be in Europe, but then you move out to India, North America, etc. And it was just a really solid all-round Euro that was taught really well. It was really easy to pick up, but there were a lot of different ways to play it. I think there was a lot of interaction. I think more interaction, more players. I care what they're doing. I need to keep an eye out. There's even a small amount of attacking in it, but it isn't attacking that makes you feel bad if you're not super done in by it. It's just that it's an annoyance rather than a pain. And it does something I thought was really well, is that it handles the very difficult matter of slavery in a very mature but very logical fashion. That essentially slave cards are really good until slavery gets outlawed, and then you are done because you're a bad person. So don't do slavery, kids.
You get immediate gains if you go down the slavery route and sort of employ or buy some slaves to use. But then at some point, as the game progresses, slavery becomes abolished, and all those slavery cards become worth negative victory points. Yeah. So it's like, is it worth taking the short-term gain because I'm going to pay for it in the long term? Yeah, it's really well done. The engine building is very satisfying. but it's also very simple. It's not particularly complex at all, but just the idea of, oh, I'll get this. You've got 4 tracks essentially, don't you? And the further you move on one track, the more money you get each round, or the more workers you're going to get, whatever it is. So it's easy to visualize because it all happens right in front of you, but it's still, as I say, really satisfying. And also the expansion on the map is great. So it's like, oh, I can go over here and get this, and there's lots of different sort of routes you can take sailing around. It's like, if I go this route, no one's on that route yet, but there are ways to kind of, not quite teleport, but give yourself presence in certain regions very quickly. Lots of options. Really like this one. Really looking forward to playing this one again. Next one then is Super Fantasy Brawl, which hasn't actually come out yet, but is coming out later this year, which is from Mythic Games, and it's essentially a tactical skirmish game with miniatures. So it's very colourful. It's it's not quite chibi, but it's the sort of very cartoony style characters. But the miniatures are great. We've done like a playthrough video. I'm not sure this will be out at the time this is released, but we got a chance to play like a prototype copy of this. But I mean, it was essentially a finished copy. It was really, really nice. Artwork's great, but really interesting decision. So on your turn, you have a hand of cards, and you're playing 3 of them essentially to get your guys, your 3 people, to do different things. You can activate the same guy twice, but you need to use 3 different colours of cards most of the time. So it might be that you have this great red card to let this guy move a really long way, and then another red card to let him attack, but you can't use 2 red cards. So it's like, oh, I need to use a yellow card and then a blue card. What's the best combination? It might be I'm better off using this red card for this other person, and then I'll save this one for later. And so lots of interesting decisions that kind of restrict what you can do, but essentially you're just running around the map hitting each other and trying to complete goals. There are victory point targets that come like get to this area or hold this area or whatever it is. So it's simple enough, but lots of interesting things to think about when it's your turn.
It's interesting they've designed this from off for tournament play. We were very much told from the beginning this is aimed to be an easy game to play in a tournament. Essentially, you'll build a team of 5 characters, and then you'll be sure you can take one, and your opponent can tell you not to take one of the others. They can say you can't take that character, and then you go from that. You've got to build a team of 3, and so they designed it to be a 45-minute to an hour quick, and it was quick. We picked it up really quickly. We played through once we knew what we were doing. We were 2/3 of the way through the game with very little teaching. There's a few keywords and stuff as you'd expect in this type of thing, but nothing outlandish to pick up.
It fills a very similar niche to Shadespire, if you're familiar with that. And having played quite a bit of Shadespire, I would struggle to pick between them. I think it's done really, really well, Super Fantasy Brawl, and just as enjoyable as Shadespire. But it feels lighter, I think, because of the artwork and the cartoony nature of it, but not lighter in terms of gameplay.
But the decisions are still really deep.
So if you prefer a lighter theme to Shadespire, then look out for Super Fantasy Brawl. It was very good.
So the last one I'm going to talk about is Letter Jam, which is... sorry, I had a bit of a letter jam there. So Letter Jam is basically Hanabi. If you've played Hanabi, Jonathan might like Hanabi a bit. But it's Hanabi with letters. And what you've got in front of you, you've got... and you can tailor this for the difficulty of the game, but maybe you have a 5-letter word face down in a random order and you don't know any of those letters. So whatever your word might be, it's in a random order, and the object of your game is to work out your word, and everyone's going to try and work out their own words, and it's cooperative. So you're trying to help each other do those words, and you've got a set number of clues. And what happens is you take your first letter, you put it in front of you, facing away from you so everyone else can see it, and there's always 6 letters. So if you're not playing with 6 people in the game, there'll be some dummy letters, and what you're trying to do is you're looking at what other people have got, and you're trying to say, I've got a 4-letter word that helps 4 people. And you think, oh, that's great, brilliant. And then you tell them your 4-letter word, but you don't say the actual word. You say, Jonathan's got the first letter, Mark's got the second, Amy's got the third, and Miles has got the 4th letter. And they can see 3 of the other 4 letters. So let's say the word I can see is bard. Jonathan can see blank, A-R-D. So he knows his first letter is B, or C, or H for bard, card, or hard. Oh, Mark's brilliant. Yeah, Mark knows he's got B, blank, R-D. He's got bard, or bird. Oh, it's not very helpful. And Amy knows it's B-A something D. Oh, it's bard or bald. You get the idea. And you've got, maybe Miles has got B-A-R blank. Barn. Oh, no, you've got that. So you've not given a really good word. Although everyone's got some information that can narrow down the letter a bit, no one can get rid of the letter. So maybe you use the dummy person and you can see the word ballad. B-A-L-L-A-D. So you can say B-A-L-L-A-D. And Jonathan thinks it's got something A-L-L-A-D. well, there's no other word that can be there. Jonathan's letter must be a B. Brilliant, you've given a clue. Mark's got the same thing. He's got a vowel, clearly. He's got B blank double L blank D. And Mark can work it out. And so you're trying to give really good clues, but you can't be the one to always give the clues, otherwise you get no information about your own hand.
Yeah.
And after the clues have all gone, at the end of the game, you're trying to record what you've got, you move the letters around to what you think spells a word out, and then you go, right, I think my word is this, am I right? And collectively you all do that, and that's how you win the game. You're trying to collectively spell each of your words.
It has that Scrabble style, you're trying to make a word out of letters, but it's cooperative. It is the only game I've ever come across, I think, that really does that, where you're working together to try and build words, but you're each building separate words, but the whole Hanabi, can't see my letters, trying to give other people clues. Oh, I loved it. It was really, really good. Had a great time with this one.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think of the games I play, this is probably the best designed game in its own, like, for such a small rule set, such a great game. It's one of those games that it's like, I probably could have designed it if I thought that. You know, I wish I never could, because I'm never going to be that good a designer, but for such a simple rule set, how good something to be made, it's fantastic. And it will work well with a lot of various people, because it's the sort of thing you could probably play with the family, or the sort of thing you could play with gamers, which a lot of games do. I expect this to be getting nominations for things in a year's time, because it's exactly one of those sort of games. But yeah, it was really fun, and we all had a great time.
I hope so, but I think it's above some people. I think it's a bit too hard to pick up, and I think to grasp the strategy about what sort of words you need to be giving people. You can't just say, oh, I've seen a word, I'll say it. You've got to think about, I've seen a word, but is it unique enough that those people can actually narrow down the letter they've got in front of them? Because if it isn't, if it's like that first example I gave you, you're actually giving them some information, but you're wasting your clue, and none of them can get rid of their letter.
I mean, Scrabble is like this. It's quite polarising in that if you've practiced it quite a bit and you're good at making words, usually you enjoy it. But if you haven't and you're not good at making words, it's no fun at all. And this is definitely going to be like that. If you are not good at making words out of letters, you're not going to enjoy this. But for that kind of subset of people who do enjoy making letters out of words, it's great.
It is brilliant.
So my last game is a game called Sanctum, another CGE game that we managed to play on the final day. I'm trying to think of a good comparison. I guess the best one would be Diablo, the video game. Yeah. Essentially, you're going to a section, taking some monsters, then you're rolling dice to try and kill them. It isn't like I need to hit number symbols. Essentially, each monster will have, for example, a number on it. So if you're rolling dice, you get 2 dice. You want a nice range of monsters, because I mean, if they're all 4s, I can only hit 4s. But if I've got a 4, 5, 6, and a 2, then it gives me a range of like 4 to hit, which is good. But any you don't kill are going to do your damage back. So that's quite a nice, interesting puzzle. But the main thing about this is essentially, so I've killed some monsters. Now, do I spend this monster to take essentially gems off my board, which are me leveling up, getting extra things to help me on my actual be a better character, stronger, for instance? Or do I keep it and then I get to trade it in for a weapon? Because I know it might be like a particular type of weapon, like a sword or something. I don't know what the sword is, because it's on the underside of the card. So I don't really get to see what that is until I go back to the village, that I could do with a new sword. And so it's that constant feel of every area, things get harder, you get better loot, you go back to the village, things get harder, and you do it cooperatively, until eventually, currently, you're going to hit a final boss. They're still working on that, but essentially the main flow of the game is pretty solid from what we played of it, but they're working on the other bits like the bosses and things like that.
It's dice manipulation, so the better your gear is, in terms of armour and weapons and things, the more options you have for manipulating the dice when you roll it. Because obviously to start it's like, well, I roll my 2 dice, and if I don't happen to get the numbers on the monsters, then I'm in a bit of trouble. But obviously the monsters are fairly easy, they don't hit very hard to start with, so you're okay. But you get more and more options, so there's that really nice puzzle of, I'm going to roll my dice, and I can change this and add one to this, and so it's very satisfying from that point of view. But yeah, the whole decision of how many monsters do you take on, are you really going to survive if you do this? But then you independently, which is quite nice, you can just decide, okay, I've taken as much damage as I can, I'm going back to village to heal up, and everyone else just carries on going, and once you've had your turn healing up, you jump back in and you carry on taking more monsters. The levelling up was really satisfying. So it's simple, with enough to think about, but feels very thematic, in an odd kind of way. They've done that really well. It feels like it's a bit too abstract to really be thematic, but actually they've done the theme really well. It does, because you keep moving through all the boards, don't you? And the monsters keep coming as you keep going. You really do feel like you're progressing. So very keen to see this one when it comes out. Right, last one then is this little game here, Karuba the card game. Now, I'm a big fan of Karuba, the original game, which essentially you're trying to build routes on a board. You have some temples around the outside and some explorers around the other side of the board, and you're trying to put the routes down to connect the appropriate coloured explorers with the appropriate coloured temples. You're trying to get the purple explorer to the purple temple or whatever it is. And it's nice because everyone plays with exactly the same set of tiles. So in the base game, you reveal a card, someone pulls a token, don't they? And everyone takes the same token, and then you sort of by yourself, you decide where you're going to put it. So everyone has the same tokens in the same order, but individually making their own decisions. This essentially takes that concept, but distills it into a smaller package, and they've done it really, really well. It's a card game, so everyone has a deck of cards. Instead of tiles, you put it on a grid, you just have a card, and everyone has exactly the same cards in the deck. You shuffle it up though, and when it's your turn, you're drawing 3 of the cards and deciding which 2 you're going to be putting in your grid this turn. So although you've got the same cards, you're getting them in different orders, which is quite interesting. But the other interesting thing is that each of the cards has got numbers on them, sort of 1 through 16, and after you've decided which 2 cards you're going to play, you add up the 2 numbers, maybe you've got a 3 and a 10, so you've got a total of 13, you compare your total with everyone else's total, and whoever has the lowest total has to burn one of their cards. They just lose it from the game. So you really don't want to pick 2 cards that are low at the same time because you're very likely to lose one of them. But the low cards tend to be the good ones. The ones
the crosses.
Right, the crossroads that let you connect things really, really easily are all low numbers. So it's some really interesting decisions like, oh, I really want this, but I can't play with this one. I'm bound to lose one of them. The other nice thing is you get to bank a card. So of the 3 cards you're using 2, the third one you bank. On your next turn, you pick the banked one along with the next 2 cards from the deck. So you can kind of delay certain cards. It's like, oh, I've got this orange temple. I don't want to play it yet. I'm going to keep banking it for a couple of rounds. Now I can play my orange temple. So it's really, really good. It takes all of the goodness, if you like, from the original Karuba, but it's quick and it distills it right down while still retaining all of the interesting decisions. We had a great time playing this, didn't we?
Yeah, we were taught, played it in 15 minutes, and it's one of those games you'd go, we could play again. We had other things to do, sadly, but it has that, because it's so short, but there's so many interesting decisions. It's a game that just put in your bag, keep with you all the time, because you can play it with anybody, and you will want to play it with everybody, because it is just so fun to play. It's not the greatest game for me, like I think it was said in the review of it. It's not necessarily the most fantastic game in the fact that, it's a game I want to play all the time forever, because there's only so much game to it.
It's a filler.
But because it fits in, 10 minutes, you get so much game for those 10 minutes.
That's right.
That it's very hard to compare it against many other things.
I've played Karuba, I really like it, and one of the slight issues of Karuba is that
setup,
and you can play with as many people as you want, but it only comes with 4.
Yeah.
Whereas this comes with 6.
Yeah, that's right.
The smaller box, but it plays 6 players. So I'm like, that's great. That's a much better thing. You should do that. Games that can play an unlimited number of players, you should always have the capabilities to play 5 or 6 players. You shouldn't have to kind of buy 2 sets to play 6-player Karuba.
And it doesn't slow down. With
no, it
more
won't,
players.
because everyone's going, what's the lowest number? Once you've done that, you play yourself.
That's right.
Not played it, looking forward to do so.
All right, so those are our top 10 games, as I say, in no particular order. But out of those 10, we're each, I think, going to give our favourite game of the ones we've played, at least. Mark?
Mine was Sanctum.
All right, yes. It is a really good choice. I just wish it was coming out a bit sooner.
Essen 2020, probably, as a guess.
Okay. My favourite was actually Karuba. It might not be the game I'd want to play the most out of all the different games, but in terms of for what it is, I thought this did its job better than any other game. Like Villagers, for example, is a different genre of game, really, but this just does the job so well. For a light filler, interesting, quick, plays lots of people, superb.
I'm a slight disadvantage because I left a day early to go and work. So of these 10 games, I've only played 3 of them. They had an excellent Sunday. My favourite, and I thought it was going to be my favourite before I even got to the expo, is Letter Jam. I'm looking forward to playing that with people who like that sort of game. Obviously, like I said earlier, it's not really for everyone. There's going to be some people that don't like it, but the group of us that play RB are going to love this game as long as we like our letter games. We're thinking, because you think about, right, what was he told last time? How can I link these 2 together? There's just so much scope for depth in what is a simple word game. It's great.
Yeah, it was my second favourite Letter Jam. It is really, really good. Well, those are our choices. Did you go to the UK Games Expo? Have you managed to play any of the games we've been talking about? do let us know below in the comments what you thought of the Expo and what your favourite games were.
Yeah, are there any games that we haven't mentioned that we should have played while we were there? Maybe we did play them and didn't agree with you. Please let us know below, and at least we can try and check them out.
Alright, well thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.